The sun was burning down like it meant to end the world. Dust clung to everything. The horses, the wagon, the preacher's hat. Ellie Mae stood in the middle of the street, her hands knotted tight around a small cloth bundle, eyes wide and dry. Her stepfather was haggling with the rancher beside her, voice cracking like a whip. She's strong, quiet, knows her chores. Ain't no trouble at all. You'll get your worth, Mr. Crane. Jedediah Crane didn't answer right away. He stood still as a fence post, the light cutting sharp across the scar that ran from his jaw to his ear. His eyes, pale, colorless things, studied the girl like he was seeing a ghost. Finally, he reached into his coat and dropped a handful of coins into the stepfather's shaking hand. The sound of metal hitting skin was louder than it should have been. The preacher mumbled a few words, the town watching from their porches. No one smiled. No one dared. When he said, "You may take her," the wind lifted the hem of Ellie's dress, and for a heartbeat, it looked like she might float away. But she didn't. She only nodded, silent, and followed the rancher to his horse. He helped her mount without a word. His hand brushed hers, calloused, cold. They rode out before the sun fell, through scrubland that smelled of dust and dying grass. The horizon bled red, the light catching in the mesquite branches like fire. Neither spoke. The only sound was the horse's hooves, the creak of old leather, the wind whispering secrets across the plain. Ellie's throat ached with something she couldn't name. Behind her, the town grew smaller until it was just a smudge in the haze. Her stepfather's voice was gone, swallowed by distance. They passed a fence long since broken, and a single wooden cross leaned at the edge of the land. Crane's eyes flicked toward it, but he didn't slow. As darkness spread, they reached his ranch, a lonely stretch of dust and wood framed by the dying light. The house stood crooked against the sky, its windows hollow. Somewhere inside, something creaked, like the boards remembered footsteps that no longer came. Crane dismounted, tied the horses, and said in a voice that carried the weight of graves, "This'll be your home now." Ellie stepped down, her skirt brushing against her boots. The air was still. No birds, no sound, just the sigh of the wind moving through the empty corral. He walked ahead, lantern swinging. She followed, clutching her bundle to her chest. At the door, he paused. "Don't mind the noise at night," he said without turning. "Wind plays tricks out here." Then he vanished inside. Ellie lingered on the porch, staring out at the endless land. Far off, a coyote howled, long, lonely, and strange. And somewhere in the dark, the wind seemed to whisper back. That night, the coyotes sang different. Some say it was the first warning. The door slammed in the wind. Ellie jerked from her sleep, heart hammering, breath fogging the cold air. The lamp had burned low. Somewhere outside, the barn door was banging, slow, steady, like someone was pushing it just to hear it echo. She rose, bare feet on rough wood, pulled a shawl tight around her shoulders, and peered through the cracked window. The yard was silver in the moonlight, the corral empty. But the barn, its doors rocked on their hinges, opened just enough to show a flicker of lantern glow inside. Crane's voice carried through the wind. Low, talking. She crept out, boots crunching soft on the frostbit ground, breath shallow. The voice grew clearer as she neared the barn. Rough words spoken to no one. "I know, Martha. I know I failed you." Ellie froze. The hair on her arms rose. Inside, the lantern swung slow, throwing his shadow, huge, across the walls. Crane stood before a stall that held nothing but a broken bridle and an old quilt folded neat. His shoulders shook once, as if he'd been crying, though no sound came. She backed away, slow, quiet, until the cold bit her toes and the night swallowed his voice. By dawn, she was back in the kitchen, stirring oats when Crane entered. His eyes were rimmed red, but his tone was steady. "You stay clear of the barn after sundown. Wind carries ghosts in there." Ellie nodded, saying nothing. Days passed under a sky that never seemed to move. She worked, mending, sweeping, feeding the chickens. Crane spoke little. Sometimes she'd catch him staring toward the cross at the edge of the fence line, lips moving as if in prayer. One morning, while tending the garden, her hand hit something buried shallow in the dirt. She brushed it free, An old locket, its hinge rusted but still working. Inside, a woman's face smiled soft beside a child's, and beneath, scratched faint. "Forgive me." That night, thunder rolled across the plains. Crane sat at the table, lantern light trembling across his face. The air felt tight, heavy. "You believe in hauntings, girl?" he asked suddenly. She hesitated. "Don't know, sir." He stared into the lantern flame. "You will." When the storm broke, the roof rattled and the cattle bawled wild. Lightning flashed, and for an instant, Ellie saw a figure by the fence, still pale, watching. Crane rose, snatched his rifle, eyes wide and hollow. "Stay inside." He stepped into the rain, disappearing into the roar. Moments later, one shot cracked across the valley, then silence. When he came back, soaked to the bone, his hands shook as he set the rifle down. "Ain't no man out there," he said quietly. "Some deads don't walk on two legs." Outside, the rain slowed. By morning, only one set of footprints led away from the house. The sound of hoofbeats broke the stillness. Slow, deliberate, heavy as judgment. Ellie looked up from the wash line, cloth dripping, wind snapping it like gunfire. Out beyond the ridge, a lone rider came into view, his horse black against the dying sun. Crane stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand. He said nothing, but the way his jaw tightened told her everything. The rider dismounted before the gate, dust rising around him like smoke. His hat shadowed his face, but the glint of metal on his vest caught the light. A badge, dulled with age. "Evening, Crane," the man said, voice low and sure. "Didn't reckon I'd find you hiding this far from hell." Crane's grip on the rifle never eased. "You got the wrong man." The stranger smiled thin. "Ain't that what you told the judge in Carson City? Funny thing about ghosts, though, they don't stay buried." Ellie froze by the line, the sheets snapping between them like white fire. The air thickened with dust and memory. Crane spoke again, quieter. "Ain't no law here, Marshal. You turn that horse around and keep riding." The name hit the ground like a dropped stone. "Marshal." The man, Marshal Aaron Holt, took a slow step closer. "I've been following the trail a long time. Blood and lies from Texas to this dirt patch. Jedediah Crane's been dead 12 years. You're Samuel Hayes, the one that killed him." The world tilted. Ellie's fingers slipped from the cloth. Her voice cracked before she knew it was hers. "He's lying." Crane's eyes met hers, gray, haunted. "No," he said. "He ain't." The wind roared through the yard, bending the grass flat. Holt's hand hovered near his holster. "You took a dead man's name. Took his wife, too. When she found out, you made sure she couldn't tell." Crane's shoulders hunched. "You think you know, Marshal, but you don't. Martha's death was an accident. Accidents don't come with bullet holes." Holt shot back. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Lightning cracked somewhere beyond the hills, and the first drops of rain hit the dust like tears. Ellie backed away toward the porch, heart pounding. Crane's voice came low and broken. "Girl, you best get inside." But she didn't move. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth carved deep in his face. The guilt, the fear. The man she thought was quiet out of sorrow was quiet because he was running from his own shadow. Holt took one more step, hand closing on his gun. "Time to pay your debts, Hayes." The rifle came up fast, gleaming wet in the rain. Ellie screamed his name. Thunder swallowed the sound, and under the black sky, two men drew against the storm. Gunfire cracked through the rain. The first shot split the dark, the second tore it wide open. Ellie dropped to the mud, the flash of lightning searing white across her eyes. When her vision cleared, she saw Crane stumble backward, rifle slipping from his grasp, a dark bloom spreading across his shirt. Marshal Holt stood across the yard, smoke rising from his revolver, breath ragged in the downpour. "Stay down, girl," he called, limping toward the porch. "It's over. You're safe now." Ellie's fingers sank into the wet earth. Crane, Samuel Hayes, was gasping, his face turned to the storm. He looked at her once, the words barely making it past his lips. "I'm sorry, Martha." Then he went still. The rain fell harder. Thunder rolled low, like the earth remembering. Holt holstered his gun, wincing at the pain in his side. "He fooled a lot of folks, but it's done now." His voice softened. You're free. Ellie rose slowly, hair plastered to her face, eyes on the man bleeding out at her feet. Free, she whispered, almost to herself. Holt stepped closer, boots sucking in the mud. You did good, miss. Survived what most couldn't. She turned toward him then, steady, unreadable. Her hand shook once, then stilled. She knelt beside Crane's body, brushed the mud from his coat, and found a revolver lying beneath him. When she stood, it was already in her grip. The marshal froze. Now hold on, he said carefully. Ain't no call for that. But the way she held the gun, sure, balanced, without tremor, made his stomach twist. It wasn't the way a girl held a weapon. It was the way a hunter did. Name's Ellie Mae Whitlock, she said, voice steady. My father rode with the law once, till a man named Samuel Hayes put him in the ground. Holt's eyes widened. Your father was... The gunshot cut him off. One clean shot through the chest. He staggered back, surprise still etched on his face as he fell into the mud beside the man he'd just killed. Ellie didn't move. Smoke curled from the barrel, the rain hissing it away. She crouched between them, watching the water wash their blood into one color. The wind quieted, the storm rolling west. When morning came, she buried Crane beneath the old cross, her hands raw, her eyes dry. No prayer, no tears, just the whisper of the shovel and the sigh of the earth. Then she took his horse, black and restless, and rode east through the mist, her figure fading with the dawn. And that's how the old storyteller ends it by the fire. They say she weren't sold that day. She was sent. The daughter of a lawman, wearing silence like armor. 17, they said. Too soft for this land. But justice, he spits in the dirt, eyes glinting in the glow. Justice don't care for age.